Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Talking About Birds, the only Cardinal podcast that, like Nolan Arenado, just won't leave no matter what John Mozeliak does. My name is Nate Heininger, and I am joined by my co-host, Ben Samorka.
You nailed that intro on the first try, Nate H. Good job.
That's right. That's what everyone is hearing. That opening bit comes to us via the bird scored from Nathan. S to your name, Nathan. Thank you so much for being a part of the Bird Scored and submitting
Boo.
that opening
Piss.
roast. If you're out there and want to submit an opening bit, text or leave us a voicemail at 848-48-BIRDS. Or you can join the Bird Scored or reach out, through our other social media. Don't be afraid, y'all. It doesn't have to be good. Mine are dumb every week. Nathan's is actually quite good. And I would challenge everyone, if you can find a way to do an opening bit that both roasts the show, maybe the Cardinals, and also Ben specifically.
Wow.
Let's get that in there. So just throwing out the gauntlet.
I
Yeah.
feel like that should be really easy. So, gauntlet thrown.
Gauntlet thrown, gauntlet passed.
Yeah.
All right, Hambo, we have done it. We've got pitchers and catchers reporting. We've got
Whoa,
the
whoa,
full
whoa.
squad there.
I definitely did it.
I
I
did
don't
it.
know. I'm
Yeah,
not sure if you've done it, but I
I
did
did
it.
it.
I made it. I made it
I'm
through.
I'm chiefly responsible
Oh,
for
shit.
us getting through this spring train or through this winter.
Okay.
We have our first televised game
Let's
this
go.
Sunday.
Yeah.
You gonna watch it?
Uh, I'm I'm not going to be in I'm not going to be home.
Wow.
I'm going to be in the great state of Utah,
Wow.
um,
Utah
doing a
territory.
little shooping down the mountain. Um, but I'll be checking my phone.
Oh, sure.
I'll be box score watching.
Uh-huh. Running into a tree.
Yeah, probably.
Nolan Gorman hit a dinger. Crunch.
Those are my last words. The odds of that being my last words couldn't be lower. That seems highly unlikely. Nolan Gorman struck out.
Yeah, but on a scale of all the things that could be your last words, Nolan Gorman hit a dinger is gotta be like higher than a lot of things.
Sure. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
He doinked a dong, something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, before we dig in on the Cardinals, you had a different sporting experience recently. How did that go for you?
Yeah, I went and saw our Nuggies out here. Let's
Wow.
go Denver Nuggets.
Okay.
It's nice to watch a successful franchise performing well.
Yeah.
Um, so that in its own right was just kind of fun to go to a sporting event that wasn't the Rockies or the Cardinals, a team that is good currently, and
Yeah.
watch them succeed. Jamal Murray put up like 52, 53 points or something like that, which was really exciting. I don't go to a ton of NBA games, so I don't really know what I'm watching, but I know that was
Sure.
fun.
Yeah,
Just seeing a guy dominate.
how would you compare the live experience of an NBA game versus an MLB game?
I actually think I think all sports except for football are more fun live, because football there's just so much dead time, and
Yeah.
but the other sports I think they all translate super well. What is really fun about basketball is I think seeing the physicality so close. Like it kind of looks soft on TV, and then you go and watch it in
Wow,
real
shots
life, and you're like,
fired.
these guys are killing each other. And
Yeah.
Nikola Jokic is 7 feet tall, and I mean and they're fast. I don't know. I think it's very exciting. I think it's a great sport, IRL, and I think it translates super well. And I also like that basketball, like music is a part of the experience. The crowd
Mhm.
interaction is a lot of fun. Like, I'm sure each team has this, but every time the Nuggets score a three, there's kind of a little chant that happens. And I don't know. I think it translates super well. And again, I think going to watch a good team and one of the, arguably one of the best players of his generation play is,
Always
if you don't
helps.
appreciate that, maybe you just don't like ball. You don't like sport, which is
Sure. You're
also
not a real
fine.
sporto. Yeah.
Right. Um,
Yeah.
And what was also something else I really enjoyed about the experience on that fateful Wednesday evening was that so Jokic is Serbian, as you may
Sure.
or not know. And it was Serbian Heritage Night at
Huh.
the arena, which was kind of fun. So we got to watch the halftime show was Serbian folk dancers, but they
Okay.
they were doing like a folk dance to like a house EDM remix of like a classic Serbian folk song,
Sounds
which was
sounds
bizarre.
more fun. Yeah.
And then they have these like to start off the second half, they have these two huge like bass drums. And some people from like the Serbian Society of Denver
Mm.
were banging them, and they were just like little Serbian things mixed into the evening. So it was educational and fun.
Wow. Quite.
Yeah,
Wow. Edutainment.
it
Uh,
was.
you said like music is a big part of it. I'm sitting here thinking like, is is baseball the most music centric sport because of the walk up song? Is there a sport that has music more intrinsically tied into it than baseball? Like,
Like WWE has walk up songs.
sure, yeah. Is that a
Um,
sport? No,
that's a
I know.
great question.
I mean,
I
it's a
think
sport. It
I
is a
think it is
sport.
a sport.
I
It's
think
not a
it's a sport.
sport like baseball, but it's like those guys are and women are freak athletes for the most part, or just freaks.
Absolutely a highly athletic activity. I guess
Yeah.
depending on your how you define competition would probably
Yeah.
determine whether you call it a sport or not.
What I think is good about the baseball thing is you get a little splash of personality,
Yeah,
or and some like, Charlie Blackmon, for instance, his walk-up song was like a part of the fan
yeah.
experience. They cut the music, everybody sings along with it.
That's what
Like
I mean,
Bryce.
like, I think it's that's the most you actually like, music is played everywhere, and I
Yeah.
imagine NBA, it's indoor, so it's a lot better than
Yeah.
probably a lot of other sports, and, music plays at every football game or whatever too, but it's just so massive, and there's so many
Yeah.
people, it just sorta sounds like shit, but, like, I imagine at, like, a good NBA stadium, you could have some good tunes going.
Yeah. And yeah, it's just like they're playing music and sounds during the game, like
Yeah,
which is kind of for somebody who watches a lot of baseball, that just straight up does not happen. Like you get an organ blast, in between pitches and stuff like that, but it's obviously very different than what's happening at a NBA game. But
yeah.
uh, yeah. Anyways, I enjoyed it quite a bit. Oh, the Sizzling Seniors came out. That was hot, hot, hot. Wowie, wowie.
The what now?
The Sizzling Seniors.
Okay.
It's a dance crew.
Sure, one that we all
And
are
they
very
are
familiar with.
smoking.
Seniors as in, elderly?
Yep.
Great.
Like 65 plus, right? That's a senior, or is it 55 plus? What's a senior?
Yeah, I think 65 plus.
Yeah. Ugh, old.
Oh, gross.
Uh,
Hey, you mentioned, really large men, and, there's
oh God, did I ever.
something I've been thinking about recently, and I don't really know where this conversation is gonna go, but, like,
Mm.
so, in sport, I'm gonna tie this to sports, people are throwing faster, hitting the
Hey,
ball
whatever
harder.
you got to do, Nate, man. It's fine.
Um,
This is your show. It's all good.
so if you look at the average male height of someone
Okay.
in the United States and roughly like 1900, the average male height was 5'7". Now in the year 2025, the average male height in the United States is 5'10", so a full 3 inches on average.
Wow.
And we're only getting better at nutrition. We're only getting better at understanding, what your body needs. And so certainly doesn't seem like we're going to stop increasing the average size of humans, at least in like the in places like the United States, assuming there's no uh, impending global collapse of our ecosystem and ability to feed ourselves. We'll
Yeah,
just
that's
take
a
that whole.
100% never gonna happen. That
we'll
would
just
that
take
wouldn't happen. No.
we'll just take that whole and seemingly inevitability out of this equation and just assume that like our growth pattern is going to continue.
Sure.
Are we going to get to the point where we have like 8'3" people playing basketball and like people like is our world ready? Have we considered the fact that
So
we it just seems like humans are just gonna keep getting bigger? And like
so
you have you ever been to one of these places where it's like, oh, this house was built in like 17 this house was built like 1750 and you have to duck through all the doors and stuff?
So you think the only thing that's limiting human growth is nutrition and
I don't
like
know. We
the what they're growing up in? I mean, you think that if you were to continually give the proper nutrition, people would just grow
Well, I
exponentially
think there's a
forever?
lot that goes into it, right? There's like the natural it's like what I mean, it's happening now. We know humans are getting bigger on average, like generation over generation, right? And so I attributed it to some degree of like better understanding of nutrition and whatnot. But there's also just like natural selection, chicks dig the long ball, etc. And so like we just seem to be getting bigger. We don't
Yeah,
seem to. We are getting bigger. So is there a
yeah.
cap to human size that like we're just gonna, or are we just gonna keep growing and in like 500 years they're going to look back at us as like tiny humans the way we look back at like like Napoleon was like 5'6" and that was actually like average size for that time, so is eventually like 6'3" going to be the average size and we're going to have 8-foot monsters throwing the ball 115 miles per hour,
I am
and what's
not
that
an
going to do to
anthropologist.
society?
Yeah, I oh man, I mean, think about the headroom and
Well,
so
that's
on
what
and
I'm
so forth.
saying. Like our houses, our cars, our sporting events. I don't think our infrastructure's prepared
Yeah,
for
I
8 foot
don't
tall
think that's
humans.
how it works. I just don't think that's how it works. We're not goldfish. We don't just fill the size of our container.
Well, it seems like we are though.
I don't. I've heard you talk about that. You think you are more of a prototype human, where you're actually we're
I'm
getting
human
smaller
2.0,
and
yeah.
no longer need the use of our eyeballs. So it could be going that way too. But no,
Uh-huh.
I think everything you're saying is complete malarkey.
Well, unfortunately for me, neither of us are going to be around long enough to prove this. But mark my words, archaeologists, when you're digging into niche podcasts from the from the 2020s, and you're looking for who was the who was really seeing the future. I hope that
You?
future generations, I hope their cars are bigger. Well, hopefully they're not using cars. Hopefully their pneumatic tubes are ready to fit an 8 foot tall human. And I think I'm just interested in what baseball is going to look like when someone is as long as the base paths.
Um. Wow. Yeah, you're
Yeah,
right.
thank you. I think we have some like scientists who listen to the show. If you listen to the show and and you agree with me, reach out. If you don't, keep it to yourself.
Fuck
No
off.
one
Yeah.
cares.
Okay. Cool.
All right, let's talk about the Cardinals. It certainly seems like the most anticlimactic saga is over. The number one topic that we and every other Cardinal fan has just incessantly talked about for this entire offseason has ended. And ultimately, I think a highly predictable way, which we're going to talk a little bit about. But Nolan Arenado has reported to camp, barring, I guess, maybe a major injury to one of these small teams, the small list of teams, or the Cardinals completely changing their mind on how much they're willing to pay. It certainly seems like for at least the foreseeable future, probably I assume this conversation will come back up again around the trade deadline. Nolan Arenado is going to be a member of the St. Louis Cardinals going into 2025. Um, how are you feeling about this?
Yeah. I mean, we've been really critical of John Mozeliak. This was his 1, 2, and third priority. I think like
Self-stated number one, number two, number three priority.
it's not even that's him roasting himself. That's not even us dunking on him. I think when you
Yeah.
look back on the saga of what this has been and the only real topic of conversation for the St. Louis Cardinals over the past 4 months, it is highly unlikely that this would have happened because of the Cardinals' own fault, because of Nolan Arenado's preferences, because of the money that he's owed. But
And
you
his
think about it,
performance as a player over the last couple of years too,
I
right?
actually think that's the least of the factors, because I think Nolan Arenado has actually like weirdly come around to being underrated, because of his defense is so good. He still makes or makes a lot of contact with the ball. Love to
Totally,
see a
but you
bounce
can't
back.
deny if he put up 5 WAR in 2024, like, the certainly
Oh, if he
someone
was
would.
an well, of course,
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean that applies to 90%
totally,
of the players in baseball. Yeah, of course. If
right.
they were just better, everybody would want them.
Hey,
Unless
easy
you're
as
the
that.
Blue Jays and you're not wanting Vladimir Guerrero Jr. for some reason.
Well,
But
we'll talk about that later, but yeah.
yeah. But when you think about it, so Nolan is owed 70 something $1 million over the next 3 years. He is a third base only player. He offers no true value at first base. That being said, he's one of the best third basemen in the league, so there's value there. He told us and the Cardinals that there were only 5 teams he was willing to accept a trade to. And then you look at those 5 teams, the ones that we know about, who needs a third baseman, and it really drills it down to a very small window. The
Yeah,
Cardinals end up making a deal with the Houston Astros, and Nolan Arenado knocks it down. So
yeah,
that subtracts another team. The Bo Sox go out and get Alex Bregman, and they're having a whole conversation around who's going to play third for them, but it's definitely not going to be Nolan Arenado.
right.
The Padres have Manny Machado, who is a sterling third baseman, doesn't need to go there. The Yankees are maybe the only team that makes sense. They tried to make a deal with Marcus Stroman, a bad contract swap for a bad contract swap. The Cardinals said no. So then what do you do? I
What
mean,
do you do? Yeah,
there's just no way to get this deal done. And I've kind of come full circle on this, where it's not really Arenado's fault. It's not really Mo's fault. It is what it is. And I think that there is a different way to look at this. I think that Nolan Arenado, or let me start over. John Mozeliak goes to Paul Goldschmidt, Sonny Gray, Willson Contreras, Nolan Arenado, and lays it out. You guys are the veterans. Paulie, we're not going to re-sign you. Wilson, Sonny, Nato, we're taking a step back. We're not going to do the thing that y'all agreed to when we brought you in / signed you. If you'd like out, here we'll happy to work with you. Wilson and Sonny said, no, we're going to stay here. Nolan Arenado said, I want to stay here unless the perfect scenario arises. And it didn't. So those 3 guys selected to stay here. So I think that, look at that however you want. It could be very disappointing. It could be very nice that those teams wanted to stick around and see this hopefully quick turnaround out. Um, but it is what it is. Here we are.
yeah. Yeah, I agree. We talked about this a few weeks ago, and this was sort of um, sparked or inspired by an article or a chat from Derek Gould as well, where like a lot of people are starting to like kind of turn on Arenado. When in fact, like he's kind of doing what we all love as Cardinal fans. He accepted. He could have opted out multiple times and made considerably more money on the free market, especially after 2022 when he had an MVP level season and then stayed with his contract with the Cardinals, which was an obviously below market contract. So he
Yep.
chose to stay with the Cardinals, and we loved him for it. Right. It was like, haha, Cardinal way. That's why we're the best. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then now we've got these guys who are like, we want to be with the Cardinals. We like it here. We're comfortable. We see the future. Might not be this year, but we think we can be good soon. And maybe it even could be this year. Um, like that is normally what everyone as Cardinal fans wants to hear from our star
Yep.
players. And I do get torn on it though, too, because obviously like we're in the exact same spot as for years now, where it's like a log jam of exciting young players who none of them seem to be able to click it all together. But part of the problem of that has always seemed to be access to consistent playing time. And so you start to get all hyped about Nolan Gorman getting 650 at bats at third base. or whatever it may be, Thomas Ajacey, JJ Weatherholt, all these guys that we really want to see play. So you start telling yourself stories about, well, all Gordman really needs is 650 at bats at third base, and he'll be one of the best hitters in baseball. But really, we're just hoping all of them kind of end up being about as good as Arenado is right now, and we have
Yep.
Arenado, so why not just enjoy it? I said this from the very beginning of this entire process: is that Arenado is one of my favorite players of all time, and I love watching him at third base. And if you do believe that the team could be good, maybe not in 2025, but in 2026, we're going to be happy to have Nolan Arenado on the team. And like, I definitely became one of the people who was like, let's get him out of here, let's just move on, etc. But that didn't happen, and he's here. And I'm still excited to watch him as a St. Louis Cardinal. I saw a thing going around online that I agree completely with. I think some of this inspired a little bit by the Trey Turner documentary that you talked about a
Oh
couple
yeah,
of weeks ago.
I saw
Um,
this. Yeah.
is that like the Cardinal fans should rally and make sure to just like scream as fucking loud as they can for Arenado every at bat for opening day and beyond. And I kind of agree because you can pin some of this on him and say blah blah blah. He's being selfish, etc. It's like, no, I think let's view it through Cardinal fan lens and be like, this is a guy who's going to be in the Hall of Fame and wants to be on the Cardinals and isn't bad, Like he obviously isn't the peak he used to be, but he's still only 33. We just saw Paul Goldschmidt win an MVP as a Cardinal at 35, and if there's ever a guy that I think can turn around the plate approach, I think it's Arenado. So I'm still happy to have him. I do have the same concerns that we're about to talk about like, okay, what do we do now with all these guys and like this? The Cardinals clearly plan on it happening, but in a vacuum, just thinking about Arenado, hell yeah, he's awesome. Let's have him at third base.
Yeah, and I mean, if you think the turnaround is going to be a year or a year and a half or whatever the Cardinals view their timeline as, if you're going to hold on to Arenado, I do think it makes sense to look at exploring other options. Maybe moving on from Sajacy. I don't think trading Gorman probably doesn't make any sense right now because he has no value, but moving on from Alec Burleson, moving on from some of these guys who have come up and performed decently enough to have some trade value, and hitch your wagon to the Nolan Arenado train and go on from there. But I think before we talk about the rest, what this does to the rest of the roster, I want to read a couple of Nolan Arenado quotes that came out from his first couple of days at spring training. And that first one is this is all Arenado speaking to the group of reporters down there. I'm back and I'm ready to go play ball. I'm a ball player and I'm a Cardinal until I'm told I'm not. You know what I mean? And that's all there is to it. And I've got a lot of work to do. I've got to be a better ball player, and that's what I'm focused on. And then he goes on to say, I have a family now. To be willing to pick my family and move them, it has to be something that's worth it. That's kind of why the list was fairly small. And I don't see myself really changing that list ever because, like I said, I have a family now and I don't feel like moving them everywhere just to move them everywhere. I don't feel like moving them everywhere just to move. That's an interesting sentence, but that is the quote that Nolan Arenado provided. End of quote. So I do think what you're saying is right on, and I am pro the Trey Turner. Let's give him some love when he does show up at Busch Stadium this year. Because, like you were saying, he's picked the Cardinals time after time after time. He picked him when he was getting traded from the Colorado Rockies. He picked him when he should have opted out. I think his agent was probably mad at him for not opting
Yeah.
out, and he's picking them again right now in a less direct way. I think Nolan Arenado said in spring, I'm here. I'm happy to be here. Boy, oh boy, do I wish the Cardinals were going all in to win a championship. But he also recognized that they needed to do some TLC on their minor league system and development system. And we could talk about the uncertainty of TV deals and everything else that's going on. But
Yeah.
he seems to get it. He's picked us 3 times. I'm on board with that.
Well, and I do think, not to harp on it again, but I do think like his bargaining chip is a little bit lower when he is not putting up 6, 7 WAR a season like he did in the past, right? Like he's still a very good player. and I still think he has that upside to return to that. But he can point the finger a little bit back at himself too for recent years, and like he's meant to be the middle of the order bat guy, and he just hasn't been that, right? So I'm sure he can't necessarily. He probably
Well,
realizes he can't stand like he could with the Rockies and be like, y'all are doing nothing to support me. I'm the one of the best players in baseball.
yeah. That being said, though, he actively blocked a trade to the Houston Astros, who I think most people in baseball think that they are a playoff team.
Yeah, yeah,
So
I agree.
he could have done it.
Yeah, yeah, he could be out right now, and he didn't want to go play for them for whatever reason. I wouldn't want to move to Texas either.
Yeah, I think that was Nolan's problem.
I do always wonder though, like this is just I have no idea what it's like to be a Major League Baseball player, but with the amount of resources and access that like Arenado has, do they have like I guess you just feel obligated to like move your entire family down to where you're going to play 80 games a year. Um, he could like private jet everywhere he wants. Um, I don't know. It always sticks out to me, that
Yeah, I
like
mean, he has the financial ability to live however he chooses to, but I
yeah,
think it makes sense that you'd like to have a home.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I get it. So yeah, so he's here. Great. Okay. What now? What are we doing? You kind of just talked about it, but like, what
Yeah.
are we doing now? So we've got like I think it some ways it's easiest to start with what's for sure, right? What we know is we've got Arenado at third, we've got Mason Wynn at short, we've
Right.
got Willson Contreras at first, probably DHing to some degree, but he is the first baseman. Which I saw a online ranking the other day. Is one guy was ranking him as the fifth best first baseman in baseball already. I thought that was a little lofty, but it's kind of fun to see him that high
I
up.
mean, we've talked about Wilson for years and years. Like the batted ball profile is something that you create in a lab. Like he
Yeah,
hits the absolute shit out of the ball very consistently. He has elite bat speed. Last year he walked it like 12%,
yeah.
13%, something like that. Like you don't have to squint too hard, and not to mention that his it's very unlikely that his forearm is going to get broken by a backswing or a swing this year. Don't have to squint that hard to see
Be,
this work out pretty well from an offensive standpoint.
be quite the bat flip from someone if Contreras breaks his arm at first base from a
Every
bat.
once in a while, you'll see a player run down the first base line with a bat in their hand, but I don't. I think I would be afraid to run at Wilson Contreras.
Yeah, yeah. He rip the bat out of your hand and
Yeah,
smash you.
absolutely.
Um, so okay, so anyway, we got Arenado at third, Win at short, Contreras at first. We don't need to talk about catcher for this conversation. And then Jordan Walker seemingly entrenched in right field. So that leaves second base, left field, and center field
Yep.
for like 12 guys that we
Yep.
kind of all want to get 650 plate appearances. Um, I think there's two guys that are also getting every day at bats, assuming they're healthy, and that's Newtbar and Donovan. I assume
Right.
they are out there every single day if they are able to. After that, I think it's kind of just hot hand getting Gorman in there as much as you possibly can. I think he's the real well, I don't know if he's the real victim from this because I still think they're going to prioritize getting him at bats. It's probably like Sajasi or I don't know, like Hellman or something like that. That is like really losing out on at bats. How do you see this going?
Yeah, well, I think this is a it's not a real problem because the Cardinals are they'll be fine, I guess. But I think like you just said, you have to start Newt and Donovan, right? I think Newt starting in center field is probably a bad idea. This is a player who has had injury issues ever
Yeah,
since he's come up, playing him in the most demanding position in baseball, or the second most, I guess. One of the prime up the middle positions. I'll just say
yeah,
that it's probably not a great way to keep him on the field. we view him as having a pretty high offensive ceiling. Maybe not an all-star, but I really believe in everything about Lars Nootbaar's game.
Yeah.
So it makes the most sense to start him in left. It makes the most sense to have Brendan Donovan start at second base every day. And then you look at DH. You have Burley, who, we were pretty happy with his performance last year. He is obviously not an outfielder, so starting him in the outfield corner isn't going to work. And then you have Nolan Gorman. And I think that that means that Baker and Sajasi and anyone else who you think should be getting at bats, there's just no room for them. Baker could maybe because he's going to be 28 this year. Maybe he's just your bench back going forward, and you find him, spot starts at first base and pinch hitting and stuff like that. But Sajasi is 23 years old. He should probably be in AAA. If you run the team that I just laid out there, that means that Ciani and Victor Scott II are your center fielders, which is fine. They're two players who are weirdly similar, light hitting, speedy center fielders with no pop, both from the left side. It's not ideal. It screams trade somebody. Um, but I think that's the only way it really makes sense, unless, of course, somebody gets hurt.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking about the even as I pitched it, the Arenado midseason trade thing. But the more I think about it, it's like, well, if he's playing well enough to be you want to trade him to a contender, someone's willing to take that on because they're going for it and they want to add an Arenado. At that point, if he's playing well, do you even want to trade him? You just want to keep him for the 2026 season if you're going for it, right? So
Yeah, I
it
do
kind of
think the
feels like he's
Cardinals.
here for good now since it didn't happen
Yeah,
now.
I do think, other than Jordan Walker, who I think they are going to give a long leash to figure it out and to struggle and to look bad and everything like that. I think the Cardinals are going to try to play winning baseball for the first couple of months of the season.
Yeah.
If they weren't trying to do that, Eric Fetty would not be here. Steven Matz would not be here. Ryan Helsley
Yeah.
would not be here. Um, it just doesn't make sense to. I think they're going to try to do everything they can to win baseball games, to develop Jordan Walker, and everything else is going to be focused on that. And then, if we look at the season, the Cardinals are, down 10 games in the division, or under 500 by a significant amount. I think they'll actually start to downshift into second gear, and maybe you'll see somebody like a Luken Baker get traded or released so that Thomas Sajasi can get at bats, or whoever the flavor of the week is. Um,
Yeah.
but
Well,
yeah,
I
I
mean,
think that they are going to try to win baseball games for the first couple of months of the season at the very least.
certainly seems clear at this point because that's the only reason it makes sense that all those guys, like, we get the Gray, Contreras, and Arenado. They're MVP or all-star level players who have opted. They have no trade clauses. They made the choice. They are here because they've earned that right to say so. Fetty, Matz, Helsley, all well, Matz maybe not as much, but Fetty and Helsley, two of the best trade chips on the market right now. Just seemingly there was no real effort to trade them. I'm sure
No.
Mozeliak took calls on them, but it doesn't seem like he really was. He was not making any outgoing calls on the Helsley stuff. I think he was just sitting there fiddling with his bow tie, waiting for people to call about Arenado.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, they want to win, which is fine. I'm at this point, the 2025 season has begun. I'm an optimistic fan. I want to watch winning baseball. I'm here for it. The team could be good. I'm not projecting that they're going to win the Central, but why not go into it looking like this could be fun? That let's have fun with the year. It's getting ready to start. I don't want to be the pessimist. We've been kind of yelling a lot this offseason, and I
Yeah.
suspect that we will again as the
Well,
season progresses, but I'm here to have fun.
and fully on board with that. And I think, I feel very confident that Brendan Donovan is a guy who is he's going to be, I think he is a future Cardinals core member. I think that he
Yeah.
should be treated like that. He should be getting preference and starting position. I think that we should probably start him at second base because I think that's his best position.
Yeah.
So I think the problem comes and the frustration comes from, okay, Where do the Burleson at bats come? Where do the Gorman at bats come from? Sajasi doesn't make sense on this team. Scott is. Are they going to let him start, or is this Siani's job to lose? I think is like the development year, and we've talked about this a couple of times now that I'm about to say it again, but the development year is just dissolving into dust.
It's yeah.
And I appreciate what you're saying. It is fun to be competitive, and we should be excited about a potentially competitive 2 months of the season. I think the Central is bad. I don't think it's totally out of sight for something good to happen for the Cardinals, but it feels very unlikely, Nathan.
I know, I know, because a lot of this, like we have to assume someone's going to get hurt. Maybe not dramatically, maybe not out for season, but people are going to get hurt, and that's where we're going to see this at JCs and stuff like that. Is my expectation. But I think probably I'm not going to predict lineup order, but I bet your opening day is Newton left, Victor Scott in center, uh, Donovan at second, and Gorman at DH is my prediction for this year for opening day, and that is the standard starting lineup with probably Gorman and Burleson swapping at DH and Gorman playing second sometimes while Donovan plays left if Newbar is hurt or needs a day off.
Yeah,
And Siani and Scott rotate center, basically figuring out what's the long-term plan
yeah,
here. Because you said Scott has no pop. That has been true so far, but there was belief that he could be more of a 15, 20. Probably I'd be surprised if he ever gets to the 20 home run level, but 15 as an elite center fielder is a pretty good number, right? So
yeah.
there is a belief that he could get there. I don't think there's any belief that Siani could get anywhere close to that.
And I'm fine with everything you just said for the most part, except I think there's a glaring hole on this roster, and that is that if it is the way that you just laid it out, Mason Wynn has to play every single inning of baseball this year.
Yeah. Well, that is the justification for the Hellman signing, though, right? He can play, or the
Is
Hellman
he
trade.
gonna is he gonna have a bench spot? Is he gonna knock out Siani to JC Baker?
Yeah, I love Luke and Baker, but I'm gonna be kind of surprised if he's on the. It'll be Fermin or Hellman,
Yeah,
and they will be the backup shortstop. You got to have a backup shortstop, right? And the club certainly doesn't seem confident in any of the other options. So it's going to be Hellman or Fermin is my or depending on how spring plays out. Velade
yeah,
is an option, or Barrero, the
yeah.
kid from the Reds. There's
Ugh.
options, right? But I suspect it'll be Hellman. He's on the
All right,
40 already.
all right. We'll see.
Yeah, I'd hope not. Well, this is all the downstream effects of having Arenado still there, right?
Yeah,
But someone will get hurt, someone will not, produce, and they'll pull the plug on him. But yeah, it's I don't know. You could kind of view this as it's like one half a development year if you're just focusing on Jordan Walker and Nolan Gorman and Victor Scott, right? Like if you
yeah,
if you
yeah.
and pitching kind of, I guess, even though we
No,
also still have
no,
Michael.
no. I disagree with that. That is
I know
bullshit.
I
That is
started saying
bullshit.
it and then I can't back it
Unless
up.
you're trying to develop Steven Matz.
Yeah, and hey, Miles Michaelis, he might, he's got a few years left in him.
I
Uh,
really because he's a big guy. He's got a nice arm. I really thought that he could adjust, and I've lost that hope. But
I mean, even most guys at 37, 38, like he's made it longer than most. I mean, you can argue
yeah,
whether he should be, but he's made it longer than most pitchers make it.
yeah, yeah. All right. So let's start talking about spring. Before we do, I did think that this was interesting. The Athletic released their off-season grades for every team, and fun article. Love the Athletic; they do great work over there. Two teams received an F on their off-season. I think we can all assume one of the teams, St. Louis Cardinals, got an F
Uh-huh.
because they didn't do anything.
Yeah.
They remain the only team to not have made a major acquisition or a free agent or anything like that. The other team that got an F was my Colorado Rockies. So I just
Been
thought
a
that
fun
was
off season for you over there.
a really relevant data point that the Rockies and the Cardinals are in the same bucket right now. I
Yeah.
do just to complain about the Colorado Rockies right now. They let go of Brendan Rodgers, who I think I've talked about on this show about how
Uh-huh.
I like him, pro Brendan Rodgers, to bring in Tyro Estrada. That was their big move. And
You
it's
gotta bring in
frustrating.
Estrada. That's the
You
missing piece.
it's I they should trade Ryan McMahon. Ryan McMahon does not deserve or does not yeah, he does not deserve to be on such a pathetic team winning, 60 to 70 games a year. It's just pathetic.
What about, Condo and their pick from last year? He could be fun.
Yeah, and I actually, if we want to talk about the Rockies for a second, I mean Chase Dollander is about to be a dude. Now the Rockies will probably, break that somehow and ruin his development. But I don't know if you've been paying attention to this kid. He is legit.
Mhm.
And maybe that's what the Rockies are waiting for is a starting pitching prospect.
One starting pitching prospect. That's all that they need. That and Tyro Estrada is the missing piece that the Rockies have needed. But yeah,
um,
doesn't feel great to be in the same company as the Rockies. You could at least say, we have been a big fan of all of the front office and coaching changes and all of that the Cardinals have done. So if you look at the offseason just purely from like a organizational future building standpoint, at like the executive level, they've done a really good job. At least we think they have.
yeah,
This will take a long time to play out, but all the new directors, the new
yep.
coaches, all that does seem to have been very thoughtful and well handled. And I'm anticipating good results in the future from them. I don't think the Rockies have done anything like that.
No, 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 no. No, the Rockies are, I mean, it's the worst front office in professional sports, in my opinion. Um, just one other thing I want to bitch about is from the St. Louis Cardinals offseason and why I think there's probably a lot of people who are like, well, of course the Cardinals didn't make any acquisitions. It's time to see what we have. So let's use 2025
Yeah.
to see what we have, whatever the hell that means. My problem is that I think most other teams in baseball, except for the Colorado Rockies, have a real understanding of what their team looks like, what they're going to get out of their guys without having to use an entire baseball season to take a closer
Yeah.
look. And I'm not saying no one knows how a player is going to go from AAA or AA to the major leagues because anything can happen and players develop and things change. But the fact that the Cardinals need to use an entire season to take the temperature on their organization is very frustrating. And I think there had to have been some player moves, acquisitions, trades that could set the team up better for
Hmm.
next year or clear log jams or take advantage of, you know, I'm just making this up off my head. What if the Yankees loved Alec Burleson's batted ball profile? Finding a trade there. You don't need
Yeah.
Alec Burleson. I like Alec Burleson. I hope he has a great year for the Cardinals. Doesn't really make a lot of sense for this team.
Right.
Move a guy like that. Do something. Make a move. There had to have been something to do to make this team better, and they just didn't do it.
Yeah.
And that's why they deserve an F. And that's why, I'm going to try to calm down, but I continue to pop off on this show about the performance of Mo and Co. And
Yeah.
it's just
Well,
frustrating.
they said they're gonna go for it and did nothing to make the team better, and said we're gonna do a development year and did nothing to lean into the development. So it's the same middle that we've seen for quite a while now. So yeah, wouldn't I don't necessarily think signing any free agents was what the team needed to do this year. But you would have expected if they weren't going to do that, there would have been moves other than just letting some high dollar guys walk away,
Well,
which there will be some addition by
yeah.
subtraction there, but still.
I just think like I talked about David Robertson a few weeks ago. There are other relief pitchers out here that make a lot of sense. Craig Kimbrell is sitting out there unsigned. There are guys you could have brought in to flip.
Yeah,
There are it lacks creativity, it lacks imagination, it lacks, well, I mean anything because they didn't do
yeah,
anything. So it frustrates me, clearly.
yeah.
Bring in
But
Verdugo. Maybe hey, have Verdugo try if he sucks,
we definitely need
drop him.
another outfielder. You're right. Get him
Well,
in there.
I think you can make the team better somehow.
All right, let's talk about spring training.
Oh my god.
We're a positive show, man. We're flipping the switch.
Okay,
It's
actually,
20
I'm pretty positive about this next piece of news. I can flip the switch and get
it's
back into it.
it's 2025. We're flipping the switch. It is what it is. This is Mozeliak's lame duck season. We're moving on. We're
Quack.
happy to watch the St. Louis Cardinals, and we've got baseball about to start. What do you want to talk about?
I got to talk about how hunktastic our new first
we were
baseman.
we were talking about it last week. There's still space in this world for hunks.
There are, and we got one plopped over there at
Uh-huh.
first base for the next couple of years. Wilson
Yeah.
Contreras, we're getting best shape of his life reports, which
Oh,
is,
we love it.
I think the most newsworthy thing that can come out of spring training.
No one's ever
Uh,
saying that in spring training, so it's awesome to see what a rare occurrence we've got here.
but
Best shape of his
usually,
life.
usually it's a guy trimming down. I think Nolan
Uh-huh.
Arenado was talking about how he lost a couple of lbs.
Uh-huh.
Wilson Contreras fully hunked out this offseason. He usually reports to camp at 235 pounds. He is now bulked up to 247
It's a
pounds.
big boy.
And all reports are saying that he is yoked. He's making those shirts look tight. And that is what I'm here for. He was joking around with his brother William on the offseason. He said, I'm gonna hit 62 home runs this season. And I'll tell you what, we talked about his batted ball profile a little bit earlier. He's added on some serious muscle. The guy he just looks strong. Like the way he moves, he's a scary person. Um, the fact that he's not going to have to squat, every single game behind home plate. The
Mhm.
fact that he's not going to have to join these pitcher catcher planning meetings, and he's not going to have to think about that. The fact that he's basically just focused on crushing the ball and receiving the ball from his infielders. I'm starting to get on this hype train. I'm fully juiced up on the fact that Wilson is going to have his best offensive season ever,
Yeah.
playing first base and having the mental and the physical load of being a catcher be gone. I
Be
think we're gonna have a
gone.
be gone, be gone, honky. Um, I don't know what that's from. Uh, I think it's going to be really exciting. I'm getting jacked on my side about it.
I've gained 12 pounds of jacked excitement. We're here for the hunks, aren't we? Yeah,
Oh,
I mean,
hell
I
yeah.
don't know what else to add other than that I'm very excited. And this is one of the X factors of the season, right? Like this is a true unknown. It's like making a trade, Hambone. It's like
Oh,
acquiring
Jesus.
but you know what I mean? Like we don't know exactly, but if you just simply take his 450 at bats and project it out to 650, you start to get really excited. Now, will he be able to sustain it for that long? Does he get in his head about first base defense? There's all these things that we don't know. But it's not like he's a new guy. He's been in the league for a long time, and he's always been offensive forward. So it really feels just like a little bit more of an unleashing rather than like a whole new world for this guy. So I am also very excited. I think if you were a betting man right now, like he certainly seems to be the favorite as like the leading offensive player on the team, possibly by a mile next year.
I hope I hope not by a mile because that means that none I I'm confident, I am hopeful that one of these guys that we're talking about is going to pop off. I would love for it to be Jordan Walker.
Yeah.
Not sure that's going to be the case, but I mean, one of these guys has to put it together, even if it's Ivan Herrera or Newt
Well, two
just
things can
finally
be
being
true.
healthy. Yeah.
We're talking about this I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but if Willson Contreras hits 40 home runs,
Yeah,
someone else could have a fantastic offensive season and still be quite far behind someone
that's a
like
fair point. That's a fair point.
Contreras,
Yeah.
with a 12% walk rate and like a 9 something OPS, it could be a monster season.
Oh, yeah, let's do that. Okay, I'm back positive, Nate. I'm having fun again.
We're on board.
Hell yeah.
2025. Put your money down. Cardinals winning it all.
You're the hunks.
We are the hunks.
No, I'm not sure that applies to us.
We are hunks now, all of us.
Okay. Okay. That's
2025
nice.
hunks are back.
Hunks are back. It's
Don't look at the
okay.
TV other than the St. Louis Cardinals. Hunks are back.
Hunks are back. Finally.
It's been a rough period for hunks lately, but
You think
we're
that they've had it rough?
I think it's been rough.
Okay. Well, I'm
Yeah.
glad that you're out here
But
stopping for them.
the cliff divers at Casa Bonitas and Wilson Contreras, they're bringing back hunks.
Um, sure, dude. Speaking of hunk, I want to talk about Mr. Alec Burleson for
Yeah.
1 minute. Something that I think will be really interesting to watch during spring and I guess this year. But I'm very curious to see how Ali and the club deploy Mr. Burleson. He has been god awful against left-handed pitching.
Yeah.
Last year, he put up a 43 WRC plus against left-handed pitchers. In his career, it's been a 49. I feel like we haven't really talked about this a ton. Um, but we're getting to the point in the level of at bats where it is like a not a problem because he's on the strong side of the platoon and he hits righties really well, and we love him for that, don't we, folks? Um,
Mhm.
but he's 26. He hasn't hit lefties. They keep him in against lefties because of his at bat and whatnot. I'm very curious to see how this is handled. Is this part of his development, or is part of the development having somebody with a right-handed bat come in and hit for him, especially if he's DHing? Because if he's in the lineup, he's DHing against the lefty. He's 60% worse than an average major leaguer. It's really not working anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of hard not to say that he got his shot last year and now the Cardinals need to start looking at other options. That we look at his he's got 3 years in the league now, but I mean, really 2
Got
full
about
years.
just about 1,000 plate appearances in
Yeah.
MLB at this point.
Yeah, and, if you look at his trajectory, he was negative -0.2 WAR in a very small sample size in 2022, negative 6.6 WAR in 2023, and then .6 FWAR in 2024, mostly off of the damage he did against right-handed pitching because his defense was trash.
Yeah.
Um, a DH platoon right-handed with first base locked in with our hunk, you start to see that maybe he is just a platoon guy at DH, which is the most infinitely replaceable part of a team, right?
Yeah.
I do. We we both are big believers in his bat, at least against right-handers, but it's pretty easy to start to see where you'd rather that time go to a Sajasi or eventually a Weatherhole or just anybody that you think has a potential to be an everyday at bat. And I think we mentioned it earlier in the episode, but this is one of the downstream effects of the Arenado thing is like
Yeah.
I have a
Does
hard
he
time
get
saying
pushed out?
I
Yeah.
feel like Burleson is a very likely candidate to be pushed out, assuming everyone is healthy. And they all if they truly don't want to play him in the outfield anymore, which is a very reasonable decision, especially if you're confirming or if you are set on Walker in right field for 160 games. I don't think you want to do a Walker and right, Burleson and left for too long. I mean, I know we believe Walker's improving, but still, that's gonna be rough. And after that, then you're just looking at DH,
Yeah.
and we want
It's
Gorman
yeah.
650. I
I think
again,
you
I
have
I hate it,
to
but this, I think, I don't know where he fits anymore.
And that I think that's that what you just hit on is the thing is that Gorman has that 70 raw power potential.
Right.
Um, Burleson might be a better hitter, but Gorman has the higher ceiling. And I think, when you're in this type of year, you have to let him get those ABs because I think Burley could improve. I think he could continue to add power and be more selective and walk a little bit
Yeah.
more.
He has gotten better every year. Like that he's a victim of the circumstances too. Like if he got another full year, I think we might have a different story, but I don't with the current makeup of the Cardinals, I don't think it really even makes sense to give him another full year, right?
Yeah.
Like we're even if Arenado was traded, I don't know that I'm picking Burleson over some of these other guys that I'd rather see get at bats right now. Um, I think there's probably a spot for Burleson somewhere in the league. Like I mean, he had even despite these issues against lefties last year, he still had a 106 WRC plus. So you can imagine if a team could bring him in and deploy him effectively at first base in a platoon DH right against right-handed hitters, probably be a pretty valuable major league
He put
asset.
up a put up a 125 WRC plus against right-handers. I mean, that's
Yeah,
good.
that's really good. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
I mean, he might be
yeah.
a trade deadline candidate for a team that's in it and they're looking for that right-handed bin when you're truly optimizing your team for the playoffs and you need that pinch hit, bench, right-handed guy against right-handers like that you'd be certainly very happy with a Burleson. It doesn't really make sense with the Cardinals right now.
No, and I hate that.
I know. I like him a lot, and again, he's gotten better every year. So like you can see it. He doesn't strike out. He's got a great approach. He just he got a full year last year, and I don't know that they can afford to do it again.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens.
Yep. But that's not bringing me down, Hambone. It's 2025, and we it's good again.
Calm down.
Things are good.
All right.
Is that everything you want to talk about, Cardinal related?
Yeah, we got spring training, so games are starting. So we'll have a lot more to talk about next week when we actually have some things to criticize and chat about. But yeah, we're
Yeah.
we're we're about to rock and roll, baby.
All right. Well, the season has started. And if you want to support this show, we would really appreciate it. We put a lot of time and effort into it every single week to bring it to you. And we're really, really excited about the 2025 season and just continuing this show and riding the wave with all of you. So if you want to support it, consider joining our Patreon. The show is entirely listener supported. We're not doing mattress ads and shit like that. At least not yet. I've been looking at a new mattress. So like Casper, if you're out there, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Hit a boy up. But you can also join our Patreon,
Were you
patreon.com.
expecting them to respond? What just happened?
We're going to the phones.
Okay.
Hmm. Okay. Well, getting too many calls. I can't decide which one to take.
Oh,
Yeah. And patreon.com/slash talking about birds. Uh, patrons get access to a lot of different things. We are starting, we've got our fantasy league started up. We still have some space, I think. So this is really the last call for that because we're going to start the draft soon. We do a slow draft. So you don't have to worry about like committing an entire afternoon to it. It's just something you can kind of do passively. But if you want to join, you can join the Bird Scored where we're talking about baseball and we're following the league all year. It's a great place to go to get away from the noise of all the other shitty social media. Join our shitty social media.
yeah.
Uh, and yeah, patreon.com/slash talking about birds. Also, tell your friends, tell your family, and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. It really does help us. Hambone, where else can people find us online?
Yeah, we got all those shitty social media bullshit things going on. So why don't you check us out on Blue Sky? You can skeet with us over there. We're also on Instagram at Talking About Birds. We got a TikTok account. Come look at our faces and little clips and whatnot on TikTok and like it and share it. And duet it. Duet it. I think that you can duet it. I think I know what that means. Do it to us, though. I dare you.
Duet it to us.
This show is also available to listen to on Spotify and YouTube if you're one of those freaks. So seek us out there. You can find all the podcast information. We have shirts for sale. If you want to wear a kind of Cardinal Z t shirt that isn't giving the Cardinals money, go look at talkingaboutbirds.com. Of course, you can email us thoughts, questions, anything you might have to talkaboutbirds at gmail.com. And of course, as always, Nathan, you can call us and leave a voicemail or send a
Wow.
text message to
Wow.
848 48 birds. That is 848 482 4737.
That's right. All right, Hambone. Let's get back to our packed show. The season is the off season is finished, and a few teams are finishing up their rosters as well. We
Yeah.
finally had a few pieces drop that we've all been waiting for. Why don't you run us through some of the top league news of the last week?
Yeah, I think the big thing finally happened. The Red Sox have agreed to a 3-year deal with Alex Bregman for $120 million.
Yep.
We kind of referenced this earlier. It's a big reason why the Nolan Arenado conversation is completely turned around,
Yep.
or it just totally stopped. It is
It's
what it is
basically
now.
done. Yeah.
Um, and the Red Sox now have a very interesting situation where they just brought in the defending Gold Glove winner at third base. They have Rafael Devers, who is their current third baseman and is also being paid something north of $300 million to do
Sort of a
so.
franchise player for them.
And yesterday, in a press conference, Rafael Devers said that he is not a DH; he is a third baseman. And Alex Cora followed that up with a meeting with the press corps, where he said the deal that Rafi Devers signed was with a different group in the front office. So it sounds like there's a little bit of trouble in paradise. My guess on the situation is that Rafi Devers is going to be a first base DH this season, splitting
Yeah.
time with Casas and Masataka Yoshida. And Alex Bregman, the reigning Gold Glove winner, is not going to be playing second base. He will be entrenched at third base for at least this year. An interesting thing to note about this deal: it's heavily deferred, of course, because that's what happens now. And Bregman can opt out after this year or the year after. So could be a 1-year deal type thing, but it is quite interesting what's happening over there.
Yeah, I feel like the Red Sox just consistently find ways to get little fights with their players. Feels like every year there's something of them like, I want to play this position, and too bad,
Well,
you know.
well, you would think like if the Cardinals were in this situation where we had a offensive first third baseman, and it was being widely reported that they were either in on Nolan Arenado or Alex Bregman or whoever else, you think you would maybe be talking to Rafi Devers of like, hey,
Right.
here's what we're seeing. This is how we think the team could be deployed the best, as if you are a little flexible. But seems like they haven't had the conversation. It seems like it's been mishandled. Alex Cora is
Yeah.
really good at his job. So I bet he finds a way to talk Rafi into it and it's all going to be fine. But from the outside looking in, it does look kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, it was interesting to see a player too, not just go out there and just say the right thing. I'm here to win. I'll play wherever I'm needed, etc. You have a guy who goes, I'm the third baseman. Like,
Yeah. Well, he's also arguably the worst defensive third baseman in baseball. So having self awareness is important.
well, yeah, there's a lot of, I would argue, lack of self-awareness and going to the press and saying, "I'm the third baseman" when your team has just acquired one of the best third basemen in the game.
Yeah. And you think like you'd be excited about that, right? Like Bregman's a good player,
Yeah. Yeah. I People take a lot of pride in their work though, you know. So,
but he's got the bag. They
yeah.
paid you,
Yeah.
you know?
He's like, "Oh
There.
no, I guess I don't have to play anymore." That's what I'd be doing. I'm like, "All right, I'll sit."
Do the Anthony Rendon path.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
people love that. Um, Moving on to another big free agent signing that was really late to the game. The Padres have finally signed Nick Pivetta on a
Mhm.
kind of funny deal. It's a 4-year, $55 million deal. He gets a $3 million signing bonus right now. His salary for the upcoming year is $1 million. And then he's guaranteed 19, 14, and $18 million over the following 3 years. So I think one of the more unique structures of a contract I've ever seen. And I personally really like this signing. I think Nick Pavetta is hugely underrated. He had a nice year last year. He kind of figured something out with Boston's approach to, just really leaning on the breaking ball. And the Padres starting rotation, I mean, if they don't trade anyone, which there has been chatter about them moving Cease or King, their starting rotation right now is Dylan Cease, Michael King, Yu Darvish, Nick Pavetta, and probably Matt Waldron, who is the knuckleball guy that had a nice
Yeah.
year last year, which is pretty good, really.
Man, I don't, Cease and King, that puts them right there with pretty much any of the other
I
competitors as
King
far
is
as
underrated. How
I
how good of I
agree.
feel like people don't realize how good of a year he had last year.
That's what I agree. And Cease is probably appropriately rated, but like
Yeah,
I think any team in baseball would be very happy to have Cease and King as their 1 and 2. I've been a little surprised that they've been considering trading either of them for that reason, but also I know the Padres are just kind of always wheeling and dealing and moving prospects and trading top guys. So I guess I'm not surprised to know that it's the Padres, but if I were the Padres, I'd be like, I'm keeping those 2 guys. In a way, like they got a lot of shit for the Juan Soto stuff, but like I it King was a real get for them,
it
and
was.
I really like. It wouldn't surprise me if by the end of this year he is considered a top 5, top 10 pitcher in baseball. He kind of already should be considered a top 10
Yeah.
pitcher in baseball.
Yeah, I mean, they have 2 aces, and, you're never gonna be mad about having Yu Darvish on the team too, so,
Yeah, if he's
um,
healthy, I mean, there's a reason they signed him till he's like 49 years old or whatever it
yeah.
was.
Yeah. So yeah, anyways, good for Pivetta and good for the Padres. I know that the Dodgers are the team. I really like the Dodgers this year. I think their team looks really good. I think that they need one more hitter. But I like a lot of stuff, a
Yeah.
lot of ways that their team is put together.
Yeah.
Um, the Cubs have reached an agreement with 40-year-old free agent Justin Turner. They miss out on Bregman, and what did they do, Nate? They do the right thing. They pivot and they get their guy. They bring Turner in on a 1 year, $6 million deal. Um, Now, I think really, if I'm being honest, he's just kind of a what do you call it, like an insurance policy for Matt Shaw, who is
Yeah.
their number one prospect, and a guy that I think you and I are both pretty high on.
Yeah.
So if he flames out, you give those ABs to Justin Turner, and uh, Justin Turner has leadership and professional at bats in him, that kind
Mhm.
of thing. But it's really to caddy with Matt Shaw.
Yeah, and if you remember, he's the guy who, kinda criticized Mason Wynn for throwing, like, 95
Oh, that
miles
was
per
that was
hour or
brought up in the
whatever.
bird scored right
Well,
away. Yeah, I
that's
love
what I was
that.
gonna
Yeah.
say, so shout out to Joe Cat on the bird score talking about, now Cardinal fans can boo Justin Turner, a lot
Yeah.
more regularly.
Absolutely. I hope he has a bad year just for all those reasons.
Don't come
It's
at
been
our guy.
report Yeah. That's my guy.
That's my guy.
Been reported this week that Mike Trout, the goat, the
Mhm.
fish, is
Fish goat.
officially moving to
Officially.
right field.
Yeah, it kind of feels long overdue, but I understand from the Angels' perspective. He's elite at everything he does when he plays. So you're like, we got him. Why
Yeah.
not have him go out there and be an elite center fielder? But then you look at the fact that he hasn't played like more than 100 games in a year since like 2019 or whatever. And you have to start to like, okay, let's be a little bit smarter about this. I really thought they were going to do that last year, but instead they just kept running him
Yeah.
out there at center field and he missed almost the entire season. Right field makes a lot of sense. Part of me think they just should just DH him, but I understand right field, like it should be a lot safer for him and he can still provide value defensively. So it's fine. But I want another full healthy season
Oh
of Mike
man.
Trout at bats because if you remember last year, it's hard to remember this far back for something like this, but he was the fastest player to 10 home runs in the league last year. He
Yeah.
had 10 home runs in April.
I
And
think
then he like tore his knee, in the outfield or
yeah.
whatever.
I think not solely based on the news that he's moving to right field, but I think Trout is about to have a really nice year. I think he's about to come back. I think he's going to remind everybody who he is. He's going to stay healthy. I want it to happen.
I know, I want
Uh,
it to
I
happen
think
too.
he's going to have a really nice year this year.
I bet it's easy to laugh at the Angels for a lot of reasons, but generally speaking, like outside of the fact that they didn't do anything really major, like they didn't go out and sign any of the huge guys, but I've liked basically every move that they have made. And so
Yeah.
like they haven't made any huge moves, but the moves they
Yeah.
have made, I think, have all been pretty smart.
I
And so just
I
saying,
I
Cardinals
think
Angels World Series. We're hyped on 2025, Hambone. Hunks are
okay.
back.
I'd like to just I think that Kyle Hendricks is probably a bad move. I think it's just signing
Well,
Travis
even would they
d'Arnaud.
give him like $2 million or whatever, so like if it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Yeah, but they don't have any other
They'll be
options.
fine. They'll be fine.
I
I think
think d'Arnaud
their
was
offense is
probably
gonna be
a
good this
bad
year.
move. I think
Darno's
Kevin
great.
Newman is barely a real baseball player.
Hello, Newman.
Um, and outside of that, I'm okay with it. Oh yeah, Tim
Uh,
Anderson is currently set to be their starting shortstop. That's stupid.
Former All-Star bounce back season.
Yeah. All
Nothing's
right.
gonna change my world, Ben.
All right. The Royals extend GM JJ Piccolo, exercise the 2026 option on manager Matt Quattaro. I think we're seeing it. The other Missouri team
Yeah.
is good and getting better. I think that it's pretty exciting to see. I think the Royals being good is just. I think if you're a Missourian, it's just fun. I think the Royals being good is good for baseball generally because maybe it's just my Missouri. I just feel I feel
Well,
a weird attachment.
everyone likes to see a small market, crafty team get it done, right?
Yeah.
In the world of the Dodgers and the Yankees and these $400 million salaries and whatnot, you always like to see the team of dudes that it's like what what, what is this? What? All right. Ben is like gestating wildly, doing like little
I'm just
hand
saying it's
signs.
it's nice to see the little guy, right?
Yeah. David and
Yeah.
Goliath, et cetera, et
That's what
cetera.
I'm saying, Nate.
Yeah.
These
Yeah. I
hundred
think
million cajillion dollar contracts, Nate.
right. So I'm sure there's a little bit of Missouri stuff there for us as Cardinal fans, except for like I don't feel that way about any of the other stuff, like fuck the Chiefs and whatnot. So but the Royals, I've always liked the Royals. And mostly I just really like Bobby Witt Jr. So and I like Salvi. Who doesn't like Salvi?
Yeah. Cole Reagans.
Cole Reagans, man, what a fleece job. I mean, I guess the Rangers got the World Series, so they're probably okay with it
Yeah.
over at the end of the day. But
I
like,
mean,
oops,
that alone is worth an extension for your GM right
yeah,
there, in my opinion.
yeah,
You just go get an ace, who is
just snag
like
snag, yeah, an ace for half a season of a horrible human.
yeah, he's 27 years old still. Like they have an ace for a while.
Yeah,
Cole Reagans is good at baseball. All right, last piece of news. I referenced this at the beginning of the show. Guerrero Jr. expects to reach free agency without an extension. Nate, I think what just happened to the Royals front office, the opposite should happen to the Blue Jays. I think the Blue Jays are a joke. They have completely fumbled this last 4 or 5 years. Vladdy, Bo, the window that they had, I think some player acquisitions doesn't make a ton of sense. And I am kind of at the point now where if they are not going to sign Vladdy Jr., I think that the read that I have on it is that they have their number and they're not going to break that number. Vladdy Jr. is going to leave the Blue Jays. They're not going to have traded him because they're going to try to be competitive all year. So they'll get nothing for him leaving. He'll become a Met. And then the year after that, Springer, Scherzer, Gossman, a lot of these guys are going to be free agents. They're going to have to tear this whole thing down. They have
yeah,
completely missed their window, miscalculated the market time after time. And I think we're heading towards the Blue Jays total rebuild. I think they have well, yeah, I feel very strongly about this.
I don't know. Remember that one time that guy took a plane to Toronto and everyone thought they had just signed Otani?
I do.
That was fun.
That
Yeah,
that was not
clearly
fun for Blue Jays fans.
clearly Guerrero is looking for a Soto level contract. And whether he gets it or not, that's what he's gaming for. And the Blue Jays are just like, no, thank you. Whether that's right or wrong, I guess we'll see. But yeah, it's hard to see. I don't think their farm system is particularly exciting right now. You mentioned Bo Bichette. He's been pretty bad the last couple of years too. So I don't know how much you put that on them.
Bo
Um,
had last year was bad. The year before that was good.
Yeah. Um, yeah, they just they continue to be they have the same syndrome that the Cardinals have had, where they continue end up being in second place in every bidding war or third place in every bidding war, and then that just you lose enough of those, and you don't retain your top end players, and all of a sudden your team is pretty bad. Plus, they're in the toughest division in baseball, so they have to be like they either need to be pushing all their chips in all the time, or they need to be fully focused on like player development. And they're kind of stuck in between, but they have some of the best players in baseball on their team. So they kind of go above their weight despite the efforts of the front office.
Yeah, we'll see. I
Yeah.
think Vladdy's going to be a Met. That's all I got for league news.
So if he's a Met, so then you just got Soto just pure DH starting in 2026.
Yep,
Damn. That contract's going to be rough for them.
hitting back to back for the next 12 years.
Well, that's gonna be bad for all the rest of us, but when you think about them paying, whatever, what's he make whatever he's making as a DH, that's gonna be
Yeah, 50
yeah,
million a year. I
yeah.
think that Vladdy will not quite get Soto money.
No, I don't think so
Um,
either.
because he doesn't have the patience that Soto. I think Soto's just a better hitter.
Yeah.
But if Vladdy puts up a 150 WRC plus or higher this year, I think we're going to be talking about a $500 million deal.
For sure, I think so too, just yeah. I don't think he'll get Soto level, but I bet that's what he's asking for right now, you know,
You
and
think he asked the Blue? I don't think he asked the Blue Jays for $700 million.
well, it depends on I mean, all of that all too is all like the crazy deferral and all that too, but,
The real question for me with this free agent is we've been talking all off season about how nobody cares about first baseman anymore. And Soto got that bag, and we all think he's going to be a DH really soon. Is there
yeah.
that big of a difference between a current okay right fielder, a future DH, or a first baseman, future DH? I mean, if you're talking about a contract of that length,
Yeah, I mean, we just saw like the true peak of what a DH could be with Otani, and I don't think we'll ever really see that again.
yeah.
That's not even the profile of like a Soto and whatnot. So like you can do it where you're providing like extreme value at DH, but it has to be that extreme outcome, which Soto probably has a few of those seasons in him.
Well, he's not going to
But
steal 50
even
bases.
well, right, right. He doesn't have he has a different version of the peak. Um, but I mean, from a, like, if we're just going off of WAR perspective, even an average first baseman uh hitting like that is just so much more valuable than a DH. Like you're
Right.
producing
Right.
negative defensive value as a DH. That's why they were
Sure.
saying, like, if Otani had just been placed in right field and just, like, caught the balls that were hit at him, he probably would have had, like, a 13 WAR season or something, like, one maybe the best season in baseball history if he had
Yeah.
just been standing in a defensive position last year.
Yeah. Maybe you should move out there.
Yeah.
All
Nope,
right,
he's
Navy.
pitching
That's
again
all I
this
got.
year.
I
Yeah.
know. I know.
Whether it's a good idea or not, we'll see.
I'll tell you what.
I know, I kinda said idea.
Yeah, you did.
Well, well, Himbo, we're gonna see if that's a good idea or not.
Yeah, shuck a dang darn, Nathan.
We do the whole podcast like this now.
People would love that.
We're changing our voices now.
Who's that character?
Um, I don't know.
All right.
I don't want to do it anymore.
Okay. Wow. Well,
I didn't like the direction it was going.
no, it was bad.
Okay, Hambone, we've been talking a lot actually this episode, funnily enough, about bat speed and things like that. And so I actually was just looking. Statcast released in 2024 a whole new set. I've been doing a lot of face work this episode, throwing me off a little bit. Um, Statcast released a new set of data in 2024. It was a new bat speed metrics and a lot of interesting stuff. So they also just recently released the same data for the second half of 2023. But for today's episode, we're going to focus on 2024. So I'm curious if you can guess the top five bat speeds on the St. Louis Cardinals in 2024 with a minimum of 50 swings.
Shit. Okay.
And this is another edition of Who Charted Bat Speed. So, five guys placed in the top five. What a dumb way to put that. And I'm wondering how many of them you can guess.
You suck. I think number one is going to be the hunk himself, Willson Contreras.
That is incorrect. Willson
What?
Contreras is number two.
Wow. Did Lucan Baker get 50 at bat or 50? It's 50 swings. That's
50
it.
swings. So it's a pretty low threshold, but I wanted to
Okay.
get out any like true outlier sort of stuff.
Okay. Well, then methinks Lucan Baker's probably number one if it's that low. I'm not sure if he really hit that. I think he hit that threshold. Give me Lucan Baker number one.
It's a good guess, and he is on the list, but he is number three.
Son of a bee sting. Okay.
By
Okay.
the way, so the average bat speed for Wilson Contreras was 75.9 miles per hour,
That's
and
elite.
yes, and then Lucan Baker was 73.9, so a full 2 miles per hour
Yeah.
slower than Wilson.
Okay. Well, who the hell is higher than him? I don't think Goldie is. I mean, Goldie's could be on that list. I don't think he is. Arenado's definitely not there. Mason Wynn is definitely not there. Alec Burleson is definitely not there. Donovan is not there. Nolan Gorman, is he in the number one?
Is that your guess?
That is.
Nolan Gorman is number five
Shit.
with a 73.2. So another about 2 mile per hour drop from Wilson, 2.5.
Okay.
So you've
So I
gotten 2, 3, and 5.
so I need 1 and 4.
Yep.
I guess I just did not think he would be this high, but I have to guess Jordan Walker at this point.
Jordan
Number
Walker,
one.
number one.
Yeah.
There's
Wow.
a
Okay.
there's a reason why everybody
Yeah.
you point to everything about this guy except for his results,
Yeah.
right? And bat speed is not everything, we
Right.
know that. But the if you look at the elite hitters in baseball across the board, they are almost, at least from a power hitting perspective, they're almost exclusively in this camp of elite bat speed guys.
Yeah.
His bat speed is 77.3.
Wow.
Like,
Yeah. I mean, that is top of the league. That is
yeah,
ridiculous.
1.6 miles per hour faster than Wilson, and in that true elite.
Yeah. That's like almost Giancarlo Stanton, who I believe has the fastest bat in
He
baseball.
he is There's like a hilarious graph where you can see everyone, and it's like there's like full daylight in between
Yeah.
Giancarlo and I think Giancarlo's at like 81.
Yeah.
So like our number one guy here to our number five guy is about the same gap between our number one guy and Giancarlo. And the Cardinals
um,
have, I mean, these are some pretty good numbers.
yeah.
Jordan and Wilson are in the upper echelons of the
Yeah.
league.
I was
So you're
reading that
missing one guy.
Giancarlo has tennis elbow in both of his elbows.
Yeah, he's basically already on the IL to start this season.
How do you get both of you? It's crazy.
He played too much
Uh,
tennis.
I can't- with both arms. Um,
Like he's like General Grievous out there holding as many tennis rackets as
hell yeah,
possible.
hell yeah. That reference was sick. Um, he has forearms also, so it's
I know,
not
but
not. I know, I get it, but
you can see it.
Just to be clear, general greatness
Uh-huh.
has 4 arms. I just
He's a
wanted to
real
be clear
Goro.
on that. Yeah. Oh, wow. If you understood that reference, skeet us on Blue Sky, please. I don't. My final guess, or my guess for number 4. I cream my jeans about this guy's baseball savant all the time. You hated that,
Did
so
not.
I'm gonna say Lars Dubbar is he's a Statcast darling. He's got to be up there. Give me number
This is your
4.
first miss. Uh,
Oh,
Lars Newbar is number 7 at 72.6.
72.6. Okay. I have another guess. Is it fair to say that this number 4 is maybe not a lot of people would expect this him
I
being
think
there?
it. I think it's fair to say.
Fair to say that. I'm trying to think of somebody who swings hard often.
I will say though, he is someone that we are like. This is probably a big clue, but we are hyped defensively about this guy. So like,
Okay, well, my
it,
guess was going to be Pedro Pajes.
it is not Pedro Pajes.
Man,
Pajes is 9.
man, he
I would
doinks a
not
dong
say
every
we
once
are
in a while.
hyped offensively about Pedro Pajes.
You did you not say defensively? You said
I
offensively.
said offensively.
Oh, okay. I guess I should listen to you.
Yeah.
Wow. I said Lucan. I said Nolan. I haven't said Ivan. I guess I got to go with Ivan Herrera, although I really don't think it's him.
It's Ivan Herrera,
Is it really?
4th overall with a 73.3 bat speed.
I am. I just would have assumed based on his approach and his batted ball profile that he wasn't doing that. I am even more hyped on
Yeah,
his 2025 now. That's very exciting. Good for
he
you,
swing
Ivan.
hard.
He's
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah, he's another one of these like, if you want to project the Cardinals being good in 2025, it
Yeah,
is like he is part of that path, right? So
he's could be a huge part of that path.
yeah.
All
And
right.
there were times last year where he was the best hitter on the team.
We talked about that, and we were extremely frustrated on why he was in the minor leagues for a good chunk of the year.
I got it. So that's the top 5. So to go back over it, it was Walker, Contreras, Baker, Herrera, Gorman. Now we expect at least 4 of those 5 to be big parts of this season.
Yeah,
For reasons unknown, Baker doesn't. They don't want to give him his chance, but we'll see. Um, Another interesting thing though, uh, that they show now. This is swing length. And I think this is a big factor in you can swing a bat hard, but also your length has an impact on it as well. I'm not going to make you guess on this unless I'll give you one shot. Can you guess? There's actually a tie on the longest swing on the team.
my guess would be Nolan Arenado at the top.
That is correct. Nolan Arenado is tied with Jordan Walker. So
Jordan
there's
Walker.
something there.
Yeah,
Jordan Walker has the hardest swing in the team, but he also has the longest swing on the team, tied with Arenado.
right.
Now, this was, of course, just 2024, but you can
Okay.
kind of like when we think about Arenado struggling, we think about him really extending, going way over the plate, chasing those low and outside breaking balls, right? And I think we see a little bit of that with Walker as well.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to guess who has the lowest swing speed on the team
The
in
lowest
2024?
swing. I mean, I'm not trying to pick on Mason, but I think like he has such a compact swing. He's kind of just dinking and dunking. I'm going to go with Mason Wynn.
No, Mason Wynn overall is in the middle of the pack.
Okay.
At 13th. But we are starting to get pretty slow there at 70.2. So and like for context, the lowest is 65.5. So like the total scale here is 65.5 up to
Right. Right.
77.2.
Yeah. I don't know. Donnie?
No, I'll just tell you. So it's Jose Fermin
Ah,
had the slowest swing speed, and then it kind of just goes like the worst hitters, which is an interesting again corollary between bat speed and offensive production. Bottom up, it's Jose Fermin, Michael Ciani, Victor Scott, Dylan Carlson, and then Matt Carpenter.
Yeah.
And then you do have Brendan Donovan there. Um,
Okay.
so he's at the sort of the top of the pack of the worst. But his whole plate approach is different, right? And he
Right.
makes it
Right.
work in a different way. And he's not a power guy.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think if I remember correctly, Luis Arias has the slowest swing in baseball, but obviously he's doing something different than a lot of other ball players. So it's not
Yes.
necessarily a bad thing.
Stephen Kwan is another guy
Yeah.
that has a very low bat speed. So that's why I was saying like the correlation to bat speed and it's correlation between bat speed and power production, which
Right.
seems obvious when you think about it. But now we can actually really see mile per hour of swing down to like the decimal point, which is really
Right. Right.
interesting.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. So, well, it's something to keep an eye on in 2025 too, as we, see these guys. Um, and we're gonna start getting some of this because games have started. So we'll be back next week as this wraps up this episode. We did it, Hambone. We're out of the off season. We've got real
Thank
games to
God.
talk
Yes.
about. Who's gonna hit the first dinger in spring of 2025 for the St. Louis Cardinals? Who you got? Let's do it right now.
Pedro, I think he's going to go with that big boy swing.
Pedro. All right. I'm going to call it for, I think I'm going to go Lukin. I think he's going to get plenty of bats here in the early spring. And I think he's hitting that first dinger.
So hopefully he makes the team.
Yep. So, all right, that's going to do it for this episode of Talking About Birds. Once again, thank you all. Check out the Patreon, patreon.com/talking about birds. We'll be back next week as always. And until next week, let's say go Cardinals.
Let's go.